It's 2024 and I'm here today with a car that is now 19 years old. Yes, it's the BMW E90 330i. Now this car is my particular car. I've owned this car for the last 6 years. It's done just under 119,000 miles and I brought it I think with about 65,000 miles. So that's what, 60,000, just under 60,000 miles. This has got the straight 6 3-litre N52 engine, which is putting out 258 brake horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque. Now this car is extremely special because it's one of the last straight 6 engines that BMW made, ending a run of 30 years going back to the original M30, BMW M30, which was produced in I think 1968. So this N52 engine and its derivative, the N53, they were the final normally aspirated straight 6 engines, and this was before BMW then went to turbocharged engines. So today we're in sunny Anglesey. We've got some really nice clear roads and we're going to take this car out and I'm going to give you a really good overview of my ownership experience of the N52 330i. So let's go for it. Okay, so the E90 330i, what's it like to drive? Well, it's got the 3 Series dynamics of the rear wheel drive and the nice weight distribution as well. So it's obviously a very pleasing car to drive. So really you get a bit of everything: performance, comfort, reliability, good looks. I still think the E90 330i is a very handsome car. I think it's aged quite well. One could argue that as the car gets older, it becomes almost like what we would call a classic shape. And I think the car now, being 19 years old, does have certainly that feel of something that is from an era which is now long gone. One thing that's quite important with this car is the way that it drives. It really is a fantastic car to drive. It's helped by the fact that it's got a hydraulic power steering, so it's got the old school feel to it. So it's a very heavy steering. When I say very heavy, I think compared to electric power steerings, this is heavy, but it's got very precise feel. And it's one of the reasons why I originally brought an E90 330i, because it had the hydraulic steering, and so you get really good, fantastic feel. And the good thing is now we're on these country roads, you're pootling along in drive, but you put it into drive sport and the car comes alive, and then you can almost feel the way that the gears, they don't change up so quickly. So with the economy mode, the whole point with the drive, putting it into drive, is to get the car into a higher gear and you're just cruising. But with drive sport, it holds onto the gear, you get a lot more revs, you can use the flexibility of the N52 engine, and then all of a sudden, as you go into a corner and you're hitting the brakes, you get a lot more aggressive downshifts as well from the auto box. So the drive sport mode on this car is rather nice. In terms of the suspension feel, the suspension feel of the car is compliant. This is equipped with the SE suspension, so this is the SE model. There is the M Sport version as well. Now I have owned previous cars with M Sport suspension, so the E46 3 Series in particular, and I personally find them to be a bit crashy, especially on big wheels as well, on 18-inch alloys. Now this has got 17-inch alloys, and the SE suspension is superb. It really is quite compliant. There is some body roll as you go into the corners, but it's all very controlled, it's all very measured. You can feel what the car is doing, and you don't feel it going wayward, or it doesn't feel untoward in any manner. So I think suspension wise fine, steering wise big tick. The engine is superb as well, because when you want the power, it's there. So if you do put your foot down, you will get a good blast of acceleration. And then when I need to hit the brakes, again, you get very good brake effort with this car as well. It's actually got a function which is a little bit annoying for me. So if you're on a country road and you're going into corners using the brakes, and they start to heat, of course. And what this car has is this brake compensation feature. So as you start to get brake fade, it starts to compensate for that and gives you a little bit more assistance with the brake. And that can be a little bit disconcerting when you're on a spirited drive. So I would say with the braking generally, day-to-day use, absolutely fine. If you're going to take this car on a spirited A and B road, then you do get that brake compensation feature, which is not to my liking. But then the point is, are you going to take this car on A and B roads? Yes, it does feel at home on those types of roads, but this is really a GT car. It's a car to travel long distances. It's a car that eats up the miles. So you're doing your dual carriageways, motorways, your cross-country roads. It does it all. And to be honest, you don't need to be driving 10 tenths, 9 tenths, 8 tenths. This is just a car you sit in, you enjoy in these kind of plush beige or lemon Dakota leather, and you just enjoy the drive, and you enjoy the kind of focus dynamics that a 3 Series brings to the driver. Okay, so let's take a look under the hood to see that glorious straight 6 engine. So this engine is made from magnesium, a combination of magnesium and alloy, so it's got a very lightweight construction, and as I said before, it puts out 258 brake horsepower and 300 Newton meters of torque. It's a very strong, muscular engine, and extremely reliable as well, the N52. Now, in terms of the things that can go wrong generally, Vanos solenoids, which are located down here, there's 2 of them. They control the oil pressure that's applied to the engine. They can usually go at around about 75,000 miles. Usually one goes before the other. It's about 110 pounds, or it was when I had them changed a couple of years ago, but 110 pounds from a BMW dealer to get the genuine parts, 110 pounds each. Easy to change. You're just undoing a couple of bolts, taking the old ones out, slotting the new ones in. In terms of everything else, servicing, etc., oil filter, easy to get to, always use genuine parts. So I tend to use MAN filters. Same with the air filter as well. Again, the air box is located here. Easy to change. Coolant here. Now, one thing that's important to mention about the coolant is with these cars, or with this engine in particular, the N52, there is a known weak point with the coolant. It has a coolant pump. It has an electric coolant pump, and that can fail at around about 80,000 miles. In fact, mine did fail at 80,000 miles. Now, when that pump fails, you won't have any coolant circulating around in the engine, and there's a high risk of having a head gasket failure as well, so or getting a warped head. So it's extremely important that if the electric coolant pump fails, you will get the warning lights on the dash. You need to stop the car, get it recovered, and get the electric coolant pump changed. In terms of the cost of that, a genuine Peerberg coolant pump, electric coolant pump, is around about £250, and then of course you've got a couple of hours of labour, so you're looking at around about £500, £500 to £600 all in with new coolant as well to get that job done. What's important is if you're in the market for one of these cars and that hasn't been done, then obviously that's something that you can negotiate with the seller depending on the mileage. But if it hasn't been done, look out for a fault code that's called 2E84. And that fault code is the definition of that fault code, a BMW code, is electric coolant pump miscommunication or lack of communication. And that code usually comes on around about 10,000 miles before the pump is about to go, and some people on the forums have linked it to when that code comes, it's time to get as preventative maintenance, it's time to get that coolant pump changed. So if you do a scan of the ECU and it does come back with any code related to the electric coolant pump miscommunication, then have it checked out, and as a preventative maintenance, if it's not been done, definitely get it done. Mine, as I said, went at 80,000 miles, so it was done and I don't have to worry about it for quite a long time. Other things to watch out for in the car are the spark plugs and ignition leads. So spark plugs, I think 60,000 miles, they need changing every 60,000 miles. The ignition coils can crack sometimes and cause a misfire. So again, they're fairly easy to change. You just need to take all of this stuff off, get this cover off, and then it's quite easy to actually access the cylinders to replace that. But otherwise, the car is quite reliable. There's not much else that you can really say. This car is equipped with the ZF 6-speed automatic gearbox. Now that gearbox generally works superbly. What I did, and what you should do if you're interested in this car and you have one, is make sure you have the gearbox oil changed. So you can use genuine ZF transmission fluid, which costs around about 230 pounds, and then you've got about 1 hour's worth of labor to get that changed. It's also worth doing the differential oil at the same time. So the gearbox oil change really makes the shifts quite smooth. I always think a transmission oil change benefits the car. There's no such thing as sealed for life. I think once you get to a certain age, it's important that these fluids are changed, and I think ZF recommend themselves for this gearbox to have its fluid changed at a certain mileage or point in time. But otherwise, fantastic engine. It's one of those cars, or one of those engines, normally aspirated engines, which in the days that we live in now of electric vehicles and turbocharged engines, it's really a visceral part of driving to have a normally aspirated engine which has a very muscular yet linear power delivery and allows you to make swift progress, whether you're on a dual carriageway, cross-country road, or covering short distances or long distances. This truly is a fantastic engine. Now, it's important to mention the N53 engine as well. So the N53 engine came in around about 2007, and it's very similar in terms of the way that it works. It's a straight six, normally aspirated, but it has slightly more horsepower. I think it has 273 horsepower and a little bit more torque as well. And I think it has its own separate reliability issues related to fuel injectors or fuel rail or something like that. It's well worth reading about the N53. Both engines are fine, but the N52 is by far the best and the most reliable. So if you are in the hunt for one of these, it's good to go for an early car. This is an April 2005 build date car, so it's really one of the earliest E90s. And if you do get your hands on an N52, look after it, and it will always put a smile on your face. So one gripe that I have with many of today's generations is that they consider a car like this too old, and by that token you actually miss out on a piece of automotive history. So with a car like this, you've got to really drive it to appreciate how great the whole package is. The chassis, the normally aspirated straight six 3-litre engine, the brakes, the suspension, all of that comes together in such a great package. And even now, 19 years later, this car still works. It still holds its own against newer cars. It's certainly a lot more powerful than some of the newer 3 Series BMW non-performance models. And in that respect, I think this is a car that shouldn't be overlooked. If you're in the market for a good quality, respectable, but affordable car, then I think you cannot go wrong with the E90 330i. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You have the E90 330i, a glorious car from what is now a bygone era. But yet, if this car is looked after, maintained, it could go on for many, many more years. And who doesn't want to experience the gloriousness of a straight six N52 3-litre engine, holed up in a nice saloon body, and enjoy what might become a rarity moving forward. But certainly for me, I think this is a keeper.
Mm-hmm.